Welcome to episode 4 of Stiff Neck Radio, brought to you by Stiff Neck Studio, your best option for quality commission miniature painting. I'm Will, your host, and this week I'm joined by Stiff Neck Studio lead Wes Cogdell. Introduce yourself, Wes.
Sorry, I was rearranging my paints. I never stop painting. That's the key to the studio. But yeah, I'm Wes Cogdell. I'm studio lead and then studio owner. Great to be on the show, Will. Appreciate it. And sorry I couldn't have gotten on here sooner.
No, it's great. I know that you're super busy with a lot of stuff, and you had to move recently over there, but maybe tell everybody about yourself and like why you move around occasionally, and your story of like how you got into painting, how you got into 40K for the first time, or miniatures in general.
Okay, so disclaimer, Will, is this PG-13 rated R? Like, what kind of talk can we have on here?
I have this as mature on the YouTubes and on the Apple Podcasts. So
All right, mature it is. No filters. Good, you get the raw uncut version of me, which I would say is probably the best version. Let's see. Doing the saga that is Stiff Neck Studio. I guess I started painting when I was, I was little. I was probably 8 or 9 years old. My parents just went through a divorce. We moved to a new town, and the first friend I made in that new town, his name was Matt, and he played D&D with his dad. They had a lot of the old metal, well, they were lead at that time, Ral Partha miniatures. And so naturally, being my only and best friend at the time, I started to get into D&D, and I liked the role-playing aspect, but I was more interested in the metal miniatures. And I started kind of messing around and painting them with gloss testers paints like everybody does when they first start off painting because they don't know any better. And from the age of like 8 until high school, me and Matt were best friends. And just as we progressed through the years, he kept focusing on D&D, but as I went to the local hobby shop, I noticed this game called Warhammer. And they had plastic models, which I thought was way better than metal to work with. And so I bought my first Warhammer box set when I think I was, well, my mom bought it for me when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And I still remember what it was like, a box of Black Orcs. And they were all the exact same pose, and I think there were 10 of them, but they were plastic. And I painted those, and then, obviously Matt, my buddy, was interested in why I bought them and what game this was. So, we bought like one of the first Warhammer Fantasy box games together. We split it, and it was High Elves versus Goblins, and there was like a Do you remember this?
Battle of Skull Pass, or what?
Yeah, it was like there was a cardboard cutout of Grom, the Goblin King or whatever, on his chariot, and then there was a cardboard cutout of like an elf lord on a griffin, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the models were, plastics, and then there was like a couple houses in there that were cardboard color kits that you had to fold and put together. And it was at that point that I absolutely fell in love with Warhammer and Games Workshop products. So, and it was just a hobby for me up until I was probably 19 years old. I decided to join the military, and this was right before 9/11 happened. So kind of fell off the Warhammer wagon for about 3 years. In that time period, I had my son. I'd gotten married, and I've been deployed to Afghanistan 4 times in 3 years. So I mean, it was a very, very hectic time in my life. So just didn't have time for Warhammer. But I had a huge Tupperware container full of these Warhammer models that were painted pretty well, and a few D&D models. And one day I remember my now ex-wife, for a good reason, she had told me, she's like, yeah, I know, I hear you chuckling. Hey, man. She decided that I didn't need that big Tupperware container full of models and that I needed to sell them. And you know how it is, happy wife, happy life. So I was like, fine, whatever, I'll sell them. So eBay had just started emerging at that time as kind of like a thing to do. And just to date this is before iPhones, this is before smartphones. I still had a pager when I was in high school. So the phone that I had at the time was like a Nokia Razr flip phone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just to kind of give you a time period of when this is happening. So you can know that like eBay wasn't that big of a deal then. I took all those models, I took photos of them, not even good photos, uh, and listed them all on eBay. And then I remember me, my wife at the time, and then my son, we went on a Disney cruise for like a week, came back, and obviously I hadn't been able to check, how these listings were doing. So I logged on to eBay, and I was shocked to see that everything had bids on it, and I had a whole bunch of, emails or messages on the eBay system asking like, hey, do you take commissions? Are you interested in painting other stuff? And it was right then at that moment that I had leverage against my wife at the time to say, hey, look, I can keep painting because people want to buy this stuff. And of course, she agreed at that point because she saw the dollar signs. It had nothing to do with my enjoyment. And then she's like basically gave me the green light to kind of pitter around with this, and I cleaned out a closet in our little 2-bedroom house on base, and I used that closet as my studio, aka the hot box, because putting lights in there and working in this tiny little space, it got really hot in there. So I started taking on a few commissions in, and then I had to go to a local game store, and I was playing but mostly painting, and I ran into the studio's now very first uh, artist that we ever had, and he's still with us today. Um, his nickname is Tarzan, and at the time I was paying him cash to just assemble models for me, and then I was painting them. And then he got better and better at painting. I taught him how to use an airbrush and kind of coached him on a few things. And I mean, he's a natural artist. He just needed a little guiding to speed things up and do work like that. And then next thing I know, he was off to the races, painting full armies. So then it was me and him, and then, the last, I've been in the Army 18 years now. So the studio has technically been operating for 15 years, but I really only took it to market and really got on social media and started traveling to conventions and advertising and taking on a lot more clients in the last 5 years or so. And that was mostly due to my career in the military.
Yeah, because you were able to like settle down a little bit more where you're not going all over the place all the time. Because I think since I've met you, you're on your third duty station if you count where we were when we first met.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, we met at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And so I had moved from Japan to Kansas to Texas A&M, back to Kansas that summer, then back to Texas A&M, then to Alabama, then to Kansas City, and now I'm back in Alabama. I don't know how many moves that is, but it's an insane amount in less than essentially 4 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, busy.
So, so I think that brings us up to now. So, what all events do we go to? Because I mean, I don't go to everything. I've only been to the one Adepticon, but maybe tell everybody all the places that the Sifnex Studio has been going to in the past.
Okay, yeah. Well, you obviously you just mentioned Adepticon, and we only started attending Adepticon as a vendor and instructor the last couple years. Absolutely love that event. And I mean, none of the artists can make it to all the conventions. I mean, every one of you guys has really busy lives, and then the cost, of flying and where I can't offset costs, it does add up. So even only making it to one or two is still awesome. But we go to Adepticon every year now. We go to Nova Open every year. We go to ATC down in Chattanooga, which is the Warhammer Team Tournament. every year, which I'll put a plug in for them here. The last few years that I've been there, they've been kind of like in this not so great government building. They didn't have room for traditional convention activities like vendors and painting classes. It was completely focused on just Smash Face, 40K playing.
Yeah,
But
it's
now,
like a gym, right? Where it's like
yeah, it's
AC, but it's just not. It's like a metal roof or whatever, and
yeah,
it's
yep, that's exactly what it is. I mean, Chris Pryor, he's the guy I'll pin the rose on for putting that event together and running it and doing a fantastic job. But yeah, he has outgrown that facility, and so he told me that they will be moving to an actual convention center with the hotel connected to it, like many of the other larger conventions, which paves the way for Stiff Neck Studio to get in there and teach some of our really cool painting classes, and then run the booth and the prize wheel, and possibly hosting a painting competition down there as well.
yeah.
So,
I
and
got to
then,
see you on the stream. I mean, I was making fun of you because I was
oh
watching on the
God,
ATC live stream, and I could,
yeah, go ahead. You still there, Will?
yeah, I had to mute myself because my kid came over and said good night. Yeah, give me those, thank you. Um, and yeah, I was making fun of you on there, sending you messages and going back and forth with the Long War guys
Yeah,
about it because they were there too, running the stream, and he was catching some candid shots of you. Rob was, and so that was a fun time watching it. I couldn't see if you were sweating. I just assumed you were because I heard that it was insanely hot in there.
it
But
was hot, and I was wearing a black shirt, a black Stiff Neck Studio shirt. I mean, everybody in there is sweating. They
yeah,
have the AC cranked. It's just when you have that many warm bodies and it's humid because it's Chattanooga in summer. I mean, there's not really a lot you can do.
yeah, and essentially what I've heard is it's super hot, but everyone's like, yeah, but it's awesome,
Yeah, you just accept it.
right? It's one of those things where it's like everyone's like, yeah, it's super hot, but you get over it because it's a great time and it's this amazing ultra competitive environment that's just really fun to be in if you're that really competitive person. That it's a really great fun time to go with a bunch of your buddies and try to smash face. But that even this year, because 40K has gotten so much more popular in the last few years with the release of Eighth Edition and GW engagement in general, that you know still more than half the teams were not super competitive teams. That like maybe you got blown out round one
Yeah,
by some team that's super competitive, but after that, you win about 50% of your games because you're going against people like you for the most part that are running just okay lists and,
yeah,
and
filthy
everyone,
casuals.
yeah, all the filthy casuals. So yeah, and then so ATC doing that. So it's Adepticon, ATC, and Nova Open. I think are
Yep.
the ones you mentioned, and I really wanted to get to Nova Open. I wasn't able to this year. I heard it's a great party.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a really good time. They put on a great event, that's for sure.
yeah, and then Adepticon I did get to go to, and that was super fun because I mean the it's almost like the yearly meetup is what it feels like because there's like more people were at that one from the studio than any of
Yeah.
the other ones, and it's it's kind of like was it like the company offsite.
Yeah,
The way
yeah,
to describe
it was kind of like that, to be honest. It was a lot of fun.
and then I guess going forward, trying to do stuff um, at more events, but the main point is trying to expand the studio. I know we're looking for more artists, right?
Yep, we're always on the look for new artists, but whenever I put out a call, I'll call it a call to arms on Instagram and Facebook, like saying, hey, you need to send us your portfolio and Instagram. Like, I would say 80%. Not well. I'm gonna let you know what. Let me call a spade a spade. I'm gonna say 90% of the people that apply just don't cut it. They don't cut it right now. And I'm not saying that they can't. It's just they don't have the years of experience. They don't have a portfolio built up that I can see through Instagram or Facebook, that really shows me that, hey, yeah, not only can you paint one individual model, you can tackle entire armies, because that's our bread and butter. And this is kind of a jab to everybody out there, like, hey, I know there's a lot of really good artists, but anybody can paint one model really, really well in 3 or 4 weeks. But when I tell you, hey, you're painting this Tau army and you have 6 weeks, you need to learn, uh, that's a commitment. And all the artists in the studio know that I take our reputation extremely seriously. Especially, I'm a major in the military, and my job in the military is program management. So you can imagine how tough I can be on our guys. So anybody that wants to join, you have to be bringing your A game, because we don't just let anybody on the team. Because if we start slacking and letting people who can't really cut it get on there, then our deadlines start slipping, the quality starts dropping, and that's just not something I'm ever going to allow to happen.
Because that's the number one, right? I mean, you see it with, every successful company, it's about a customer focus
Yep.
and delivering to the customer, and from everything you said and the way the studio operates, it's about having excellent quality quickly, and having great communication along the way, and all of those require all of the same of all the artists, which is you need to work quickly, you need to work at high quality, and you need to communicate all along step way with you,
Yep.
how everything's are going, and so we can do the same thing for the customer, because it's all about the person buying the army and making sure that they know what's going on, because that's always the problem with, that a lot of commission studios get into that I've seen, is that you maybe you hire your buddy, or you see someone that has done one army and you're like, hey, can you paint mine too? And then you give your stuff to them, and then 6 months later, you've sent them a few emails. They're like, oh, no, I'm working on it. They're like, can you send me pics? No, not right now. I'll get back to you. And sometimes are not the most consistent because they haven't done it as
Yeah.
often. And
Yeah.
so that's, I think, the commitment I've seen, because we put whip picks up all the time, like here's the most
Yeah.
recent tower, Necron army. So
Yeah. Well, just kind of to speak to that, my biggest rub with, commission painting studio, and I can't say much because it's exactly how I started. There is no barrier to entry. Any dude that can kind of paint can, post pictures on Instagram, um, and say that he's taking commissions, and then all of a sudden he sees like Stiff Neck Studio, or any of these other, like, actual real, like, Den of Imagination or something like that, another real studio, and they're like, okay, well, let me get my little logo made, and like, let me try to do some Facebook advertising, and that one guy quickly starts getting commissions and realizes, oh wait, there's a lot more to a studio than just being able to paint. You have to be able to communicate. You got to be able to do shipping, international shipping. You got to get your taxes, your photographs. You got to be able to meet deadlines. You got to be able to answer all these emails. You got to be able to respond quickly to clients' changes. So it's a lot. And so quickly, this guy might have accepted 2, 3 army commissions. He's got commissions backed out through 3 or 4 months, and then girlfriend gets pregnant, wife has a baby, and next thing you know, he's telling people like, hey, thanks for giving me your money, but I can't do the work, or I can't finish the project. I'm just going to send you what I got back. And then now these poor clients, they forever have a bad taste in their mouth, uh, as far as commission painting goes. So that's the nature of the beast. You just need a camera and a paintbrush, and boom, all of a sudden you're a pro painting studio. You see it all the time on eBay, all these pro painted models. And then I look at their prices for the quality of work that they're asking for, and I don't know, I just laugh, which is fine. Hey, sometimes you might get somebody that is like, I need a Leviathan Dreadnought painted in ultramarine colors, and I don't care if it looks like it was painted with a cigarette butt. I'll take it, $500.
yeah.
But for the vast part, I think the larger part of the community, the clients that we really want in Stiff Neck Studio, they know the game. They know what armies they want. They know their tournament build lists. They know what they want magnetized, like, and they know they want to keep coming back to us because we have quick turnarounds and we don't play games.
Yeah, so I think it sums it up pretty well. So I think the next event for the studio is going to be Adepticon next year. Is that the next thing? I'm trying to think. Cause
We might have a little bit of representation at the Las Vegas Open.
Okay.
We probably won't be. We won't have a vendor booth there because it's a competing painting company, and so they won't allow us to have a vendor booth there. But we're partnered with several other companies, so we'll probably be there incognito.
Okay. And then I guess recently for me, switch gears and do the recent recap. So I'll start with me first. So recently I went to RTT. My buddy David, who's normally on the podcast, came in and visited me here at our wonderfully full casa because my family moved in temporarily to live with us. My sister and her 2 kids and 4 dogs are
Oh
now
man,
living with us. Yeah, but it's great because now we have a semi-consistent way to have a babysitter because we don't like pushing our luck too much. I mean it's
yeah.
yeah, but and so he came in. He slept in our loft. We have like a trundle bed that we got from my wife's family, and we went to an RTT here over at Dragon's Lair Comics and Fantasy, which is it's one of my favorite stores. I like the store a lot. So we went over and had the monthly RTT. It's run by my buddy John Cook, who everyone in Texas that's in the competitive scene probably knows John. Great guy, co-owner of War Games Con, and normally I help him run it, but I strictly told him that I'm absolutely not helping run it because my friends in town were both going to play, and so I played my Custodians that you painted, and then I gave David a half painted hodgepodge of stuff so that he could play Blood Angels, and um, he'd never played it before, so he went 0-2, and then got a bye in the last round. Didn't have someone to play him for the 3-round RTT, but he went 0-2 because he didn't play the army as it was designed. But it was essentially a blob of Blood Angel Primaris with all the support characters that just walk up the table. It's like Death
Yeah,
Guard that hit you
sounds like
harder
fun.
in combat. Yeah, I was telling him, I was like, just blob up and you just walk up the table. He's like, but on Blood Angels. I'm like, yeah, don't go crazy. Do not split up the blob. They can't kill you because you have a 5-up feel no pain. Like it's impossible for them to kill you. Just walk up the table and take the center. And he's like, I don't know. And he split up the blob once and got murdered in turn one by played like 3 Lord Discordants and 3 Knight Despoilers, and got almost tabled by it. And though it actually was a close game in points, but that's because it just took so long. But I'm gonna probably be playing it here if I can finish painting it here soon and play with that at this next month's RTT at a Game Castle recently opened up in Austin, which is a West Coast chain of gaming stores. I think there's like 3 or 4 or 5 of them in California, and they
How many
opened up
tables do
one.
they have?
The tournament is going to support 26 players.
That's pretty good.
Because War Games Con is providing the terrain and extra tables. And so essentially it's War Games Con presents the monthly RTT at Game Castle is essentially what it is. So it's
Nice.
it's going to be super fun. And so I already talked to him. You know, I got supplies coming in the mail to have the studio sponsor the best painted every month to give away some stuff for that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no
And
problem.
the guys will really enjoy it, I think, to get some high quality brushes and a few other little tidbits that I can get. But yeah, it's gonna be great. I mean, because you have the War Games Con terrain, which especially when you take the best of the best, like we're doing, because it's not 90 tables, it's only like 14. It's gonna be really good terrain because the War Games Con terrain's a little bit older. They're doing a lot of upgrades this next year because they're gonna increase the size of that event by like 50%. I think
How
they're
big
gonna
is
hit.
that?
They were so this year. I think they had 80 during the first round of the 40K GT, and they had like 88, 89 for the Age of Sigmar GT. The Age of Sigmar GT was bigger. And the Age of Sigmar, the terrain is not the problem. Oh my goodness, that is beautiful because they get all these clubs. Like people are coming from all over Texas mostly.
Yeah.
So the guys from Houston bring their amazing terrain from San Antonio and Dallas, and the guys come from El Paso too, and they bring their stuff from the Desert Rat GT, and they're just bringing the pick of their stuff and coming in. And I'm talking about, I gotta find a picture of this. It's think like a 2 foot tall floating island
Okay.
that is like water falling blood all the way to the bottom, and so like the blood is like the stand essentially keeping the island up in terms of like real playability, or like hey that's what's keeping the island up there, but essentially it's an island like a blood pooling down, and then pouring. I think it's like pouring into skulls, and then they have some smaller ones that are like that too. Effectively they're pillars, but it just looks like the
That
terrain
sounds awesome.
they're bringing to it is just amazing. And it's not like, oh yeah, that's a cool effect, but it wasn't painted well. No, it looks great. Um, it, and so it's like that across the board. We're like all these, like, oh, here this club, they're going to bring 3 tables, and that club's going to bring 4 tables of terrain, or people just bring 1 table of terrain. Like you can imagine, like a hobby person really sitting down. I'm going to make one awesome table of terrain. Like they're bringing
Yeah.
stuff that's super themed. It just looks great. And the 40K stuff is a lot more modular. It's essentially like 3 types of terrain. There's like Necron stuff that is not 100% optimized for 8th edition, but they're going to be doing a lot of upgrading, and then a lot of those foam cut hills where it's 2 layers of the 1 inch thick pink foam, glued together and been cut to look like a hill, with like notches in the
Yeah.
edges. But you stack them up good, and I thought the line of sight blocking was pretty well in it, and didn't hear too many complaints. I have some very critical people like Wyatt Turk over at Jackal Club's painting, and 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 he wasn't too critical about it. I mean, there's some things of like, hey, the Necron stuff, like you're talking about just like a pillar that's only like 2 inches wide. It's like it's not really great in 8th edition because it doesn't give you anything. The way the terrain rules work for 8th. So that kind of stuff is like, yeah, we get it. Like, John and Adam Lyons over there at Knights of the Game Table, they're going to be upgrading that stuff pretty well. But I think next year it's going to be great, and we're talking to see what we can do for that because I live here, so it makes it really easy for the studio.
Yeah,
uh,
that's super handy.
and so it's makes it really good. So I think with that, so what have you been doing recently on the hobby front? I know the Nova Open was recent, but anything else going on?
I am, as we speak, putting the finishing touches up on 3, 6, 9, 12 Warhammer 40K Assassins. The client ordered 3 of each type. So, and then he requested that we make them all like a little bit different, which is really difficult to do on these new Games Workshop plastic clamshell sets because they're
Yeah,
not
because they're all
designed.
monopose. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not designed to be, have the arms cut. So cutting the arms and repositioning them requires green stuffing and a little bit of extra TLC, we'll say. So, but I'm looking at them on my table right now, and they look fantastic. I'll take the photos of them tonight, and probably have them posted up on our Facebook and Instagram tomorrow. And then they'll be on their way to their client, and I'm sure he will make somebody very unhappy when he plays his army and it's all assassins.
Yeah, that's going to be super annoying I mean, I don't know that it's going to be great. It'll just be annoying. It's like me playing of like when I came up with
I'm
the
sure
Blood
he'll use it in
Angels
conjunction
idea.
with something else.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
Yeah,
when I came up with the Blood Angels idea of like, I don't think this is necessarily good, but it's not going to lose by a lot, and it's going to be really annoying to
yeah.
play against. And so if I'm going to lose, you might as well like annoy the crap
This
out of
client, he
your
orders a lot
opponent.
of stuff.
Yeah, and just be like, "Hey, I'm gonna move up to the middle of the table and just be like really hard to kill and just be like, well, good luck interacting with me. You're probably gonna win still, but it's not because you're really doing anything to what I'm doing. Which like to me, that's what it feels like a lot of times the assassins are. It's like I can't freaking shoot you because I only hit you on sixes, or you're all individual models that are hiding everywhere, and you're
Yeah.
coming up right next to me and charging me and stuff like that because they have that, you know, pop up. Was it like a D6 plus 3 inches away or something like that? Um, and
Yeah, they
so
have shenanigans. You know me, Will, man. Between the military and managing, 22 artists and then doing painting on the side, I get to play very little Warhammer.
yeah,
Uh, I've pretty much relegated myself to the hobby aspect, and then whenever a client asks for, uh, you know, um, advice on his list, or hey, do you think this is viable, or it's a good list, I always just copy paste their list into our studio chat group, and then I have another two chat groups that I have access to that just bounce tournament lists off each other, and I dump it in there and tell people to rip it apart, and then I go back to the client and say, okay, this is what they said you should do. And sometimes that kind of hurts because uh, where it was going to be a lot of models and the studio would have made more money, it's a reduction in models. But overall, the general product is something that the client's going to be a lot happier with. Um, and then they're happy that we were honest with them. We didn't try to upsell them, which I never do. It's like, hey, this is probably a bad idea. It's the same thing when they're asking for certain color schemes, or the colors that they're wanting are too busy. I will always try to help get them the best product possible.
oh, you say you don't like it when someone's like, I want red, green, and blue in about equal proportions on a model. Like you don't think that's going to be a great idea?
No, usually I would say try to avoid that if at all possible. Or if you absolutely have to have those three colors on every model in your army, then you need to give my team the artistic freedom to make those colors somehow work together in conjunction with the bases and all the details that are on them. But usually, I mean, that you mentioned earlier, like the communication thing is key. I think our response rate on our Facebook Messenger is like within an hour for most messages, unless they come in while I'm sleeping. Uh, so, I mean, that's kind of unheard of that you get immediate attention when you're asking questions that way. And emails are usually within a day or two, depending on how long how full the inbox is.
Yeah, and it's not even because we have the automated response that a lot of people have.
Yeah,
Because
no, there's no.
I don't know how
Yeah,
to turn it on. I've tried twice already to do the audit, do like, hey, you've reached, Siftex Studio, we have high traffic, we'll get back to you. Like, I don't even know how to do that. I've gotten it from other places that I've sent messages to on Facebook,
yeah.
and Facebook has sent me the thing of like, hey, do you want to turn automated stuff on? I've tried it twice. Maybe I'm just like I'm too old for the Facebooks, you know.
Don't
To be
say
fair
that.
to everyone, I was an initial user. So anyone that's trying to judge me right now about Facebook, I got Facebook in the summer of 2005 using my harvard.edu email address. So y'all
Oh,
can
look at you.
just suck it.
Did you have
Um,
MySpace though?
I did have MySpace, and I had oh man, it started with an X. There was like a there's a Japanese one that I was on too, that one of
No
my
idea.
buddies in that same time period when I joined Facebook got me on. But yeah, my MySpace is up there somewhere, and you can see it, and it's depressing. Because like I had one of the things, where the custom background where it plays music and this like the whole 9 yards when you like go to my page, and with my you know early 2000s hair, oh man, haircut with the gel with the spike in the front. Oh man. Oh yeah. Yeah, that
It's
that was
so
me,
cool.
man.
Yeah, so response rates are good from us. We won't leave you hanging.
So so the assassins is what you're working on now, and then I know we did the Necron army recently that I think is still up for sale.
Nope, they're sold.
Uh, and
They
then
sold the same day that I put them up on Facebook. Which is that's just the way it goes, man.
so anyway, yeah, so I think that's it for now. Thanks for joining us, Wes. So thank you everyone for listening. Be sure to check out Stiff Neck Studio on Facebook and Instagram, or at stiffneckstudio.com, and we'll see you next time.